am a dummy. I forgot to click record earlier on this, but so y'all joining in on the audio podcast. My bad for starting later. You didn't miss anything, just me rambling. Okay, news. Here we go. Let's start off with some positive. Ray Mickey um is a conductor of a train who jumped onto a set of tracks to save a teenager who had passed out and from fainted and managed to faint on the train tracks. And Ray Mickey jumped out of the train and rescued the kid on the tracks. So positive news. Let's start off with that. Because I know that there's lots of other things going on. Uh, yeah, let's go ahead and cover that. There was a school shooting in Colorado that took place. The school shooter was 16-year-old Desmond Holly, who took his own life and the school shooting. Two other students were critically wounded. The last of my news reports, those students have not passed, but it was still a shooting. And let's go ahead and get the chunky stuff out of the way, or at least some of the chunky stuff. One of the biggest news pieces this week is Charlie Kirk's shooting. Now, um, to be 100% honest and 100% transparent, I had not heard of this man prior to this event. It was uh I just never heard of him. Um and one of the things that I quickly saw is that a lot of people had a lot of opinions and a lot of strong feelings one way or the other. Um and that's I understand that, and I've seen people from every perspective share their views because I've seen people regale him as a hero, I've seen people regale him as a villain, I've seen people just say, "Hey, he was a human," and there's loss of life and things like that. But I would just be really cautious um in how we deal with things like this because you're showing people your heart and you are showing people your character and how um, you respond to things. Um, and so I would just encourage you make sure that you are being cautious in your actions. Rushmore, I love y'all. Hope y'all are doing good. Um, because it can be a hard thing, and how we respond to other people's struggles and suffering shows people where our hearts truly are. Um, and again, I literally have no dog in this fight because I'd not heard of this person before this week happened. But I can tell you, like watching people's responses, uh, either confused me, encouraged me, discouraged me, or made me want to stick my head under a pillow. So, um, it it's we're broken people. I'll just leave that there. Covering some of the news that came after the stuff with the shooting. Yesterday, a moment of silence was held on the Senate floor. Sorry, the House floor, as requested by just people generally held a moment of silence. But then, Tristan, good morning, dude. Um, it turned into a fight on the Senate floor, a verbal shouting match, as uh, after the moment of silence, someone requested, sorry, Representative Lauren Boebert made the request that they actually pray out loud. And then people argued over praying out loud versus praying silently. And then they argued over the fact that, well, we didn't pray for the kids in the school shooting. We didn't pray for this. And then people started yelling, "It's your fault." You can listen to the audio on the House floor of how people responded, and it was rough. But again, we're broken people and we can be pretty ugly towards each other sometimes. Rushmore says they're building a resource of Christian creators that are in the nerdy geek pop culture world. That's awesome, dude. Um, and positive news, and we're going to bounce around to the Kirk stuff because my honestly, just my folder's not that organized. Um, In pop culture world news, Downton Abbey, the final part of the Downton Abbey story hits theaters today. And happy news to go along with that. Lady Edith from Downton Abbey, Laura Carmichael, and married one of the junior footmen on Downton Abbey, Michael C. Fox. They got married this week. So not only did Downton Abbey hit theaters for their final story, um, uh, that hit theaters for their final story, but they actually are also, tied the knot with it. The creator of Downton Abbey stated that he wanted to end the show and end the story 100% for real this time because he didn't want to have to cover Nazis. The time progression has hit so far in the Downton Abbey storyline that if they keep going, they're going to have to cover Nazis, and they don't want to do that. Um, Tristan says, "Yeah, I agree. This world has become a sadder place at the ugliness of people's hearts, and shown it absolutely has." Jeff, good morning, dude. The guys over at Rushmore say they just want to have a good resource to give people, and they've got over 100 geeky, nerdy people to connect with now. It's really good, man. So yeah, Lauren Carmichael and Michael C. Fox got married. There's an actual Downton wedding this week. Elon Musk no longer holds the title of richest man in the world. Larry Ellison, the Oracle CFO or CTO, now has like about 13 billion more than Musk. So now Larry Ellison took the high title of richest dude in the world. Four people died in Mexico City this week as a tanker exploded, and 90 people were injured after that. A massive gas tanker exploded and it sent a shockwave through Mexico. That's horrible. Um, a cruise ship passenger jumped overboard to avoid his gambling debt. A man jumped off of a Royal Caribbean cruise ship, trying to avoid paying $16,000 worth of gambling debt. When he jumped, he had several people's phones, wallets, and about $14,000 in cash on him. When they retrieved him out of the ocean. I'm like, you're on a boat. Where are you going? Like, what you really gonna do? You gonna swim to another country, with a couple people's wallets and phones because you don't want to pay your $16,000 gambling debt, bro? Why you in a casino? Stop. That's a bad life choice. None of that's great. Um, a coach from removed was removed this week and put on leave after praying with students. Trey Campbell, a volunteer assistant football coach in Tennessee, was accused of proselytizing, which is a word. Proselytizing is a word uh, that comes from somebody who isn't a person of faith because they've never heard that word before. Proselytizing is what somebody outside of the faith bubble calls like sharing faith, or trying to make disciples. Right. So, like, if you hear the word proselytizing, you know the vibe it's coming from. Um, but to be fair, Trey did seem like he was going above board with it and going a little extra with it. He was uh, asked by the principal of Northwest High School in Clarksville to leave during the game after the halftime, because he was walking around with his Bible, opening his Bible, sharing verses with the kids the whole time during the game and everything else. And it was getting to the point that parents and people were calling it distracting. And he said that he couldn't stop doing it. Um, and I'll just say this, there's a time and a place and a right way to do it. And if it's getting involved in the game, distracting from the game or things like that, that's probably not the right way. Because there are hundreds and thousands of coaches that pray with their students before games, during games, or if kids ask for that. But if you're literally like, you haven't put your Bible down while you're doing the game, are you doing your job right where you're at? And you can't add in the faith element of things if you're not actually doing your job well while you're doing it. So there's just a consideration with that. Sweden's health minister collapsed on live TV during her first day in office. I have not seen any reports uh, following up on her, but Yeah, Ellen or no, Elizabeth Lan is her name, and she was the new health prime minister for Sweden. A couple is sentenced to 30 days of jail in Oregon at, for failing to provide necessary medical attention for their 2-day-old son, Hayden, who died in 2023, um, because they said that they wanted to pray instead of go to the doctor. And so they prayed for 2 days instead of taking their kid to a doctor, and the kid passed away, and now they're going to jail for 30 days for it. Now, I get 30 days is a short time period, but I'm pretty sure they've been living in kind of agony with this for 2 years in this process anyway. A revival took place in Oklahoma this week at the University of Oklahoma, as Ohio State football players led an outreach with 1,000 people in attend, or 1,000 people that gave decisions for Jesus this week. Light of the World, the 2D animated film about the life of Jesus and a version that paints John as a very, very young disciple, hit theaters, and it took the number 10 spot, or took the top 10 in the box office. I want to say it landed at number 9 with $2.4 million, which the box office has been pretty slim lately. Like Weapons has been hanging on tight with, just a little bit here and there, but Light of the World took the number 9 spot. A Las Vegas police department has officially gone full Batman, as um, they have now included a grappler hook that shoots out of the front of the car, pierces the car in front of them, anchors in, and ties them down. So you can watch the footage of this. Literally, as this Las Vegas Metro Police Department shoots a harpoon into the back of this car's trunk and stops it on the side of the road. And the cop just says, he's not going anywhere, put pressure on him. And it's a crazy thing. A small town in Arizona is reportedly sinking into the ground. Um, as locals and corporate farmers continue to drill deeper for well access into groundwater. And it's reported that the town is sinking at 2 inches a year. So the town is literally getting lower into the ground every year by 2 inches at a time. So that's going to get pretty crazy as they continue to do that. Um, yeah, that's a lot. Two, 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 two. Get back to my segment there. Okay. 19 people were killed in Nepal as Gen Z aged citizens protested over a social media ban. A ban went in place this past week, banning social media apps like Facebook, Instagram, and things like that that did not cooperate with Nepal's regulations and restrictions on social media. And so Gen Z age people, air quotes, by the news reports, rioted. 19 people at least died, hundreds were injured. And so I'm going to get to, they later lit the Capitol building on fire over that. Um, so, yeah. Police in Kathmandu were completely overrun by the thing. And yeah. And so they were citing concerns that users with fake IDs were spreading hate speech, fake news, and concerning and committing fraud, is why they banned the social media stuff, and so the riots ensued. The Nepalese Parliament building and several homes of political leaders were set on fire. Um, yeah, the Prime Minister of Nepal, Khadga Prasad Ali, resigned over the drama, and yeah, that's a lot. Um, when they were banning TikTok, we just all got sad. They like went to town for it. So, yikes. The A military video has been released showing a missile hitting a unidentified flying object, um, where the missile basically bounces off of it. People are saying it's a balloon or different things, but either way, you can watch. It's gray, it's grainy, but you can literally hear them sight the missile they're shooting out and watch it kind of bounce off of the object in the air. A ceramic bowl was discovered off the coast of Egypt, and may contain the world's first reference to Jesus as the Christ. The so-called Christ cup was unearthed during an excavation of an Alexandria or of Alexandria's ancient Great Harbor. And it is has the Greek inscription Dia Christou O Geistes, which is translated through Christ the chanter. Um, a New Testament scholar explained that the artifact does date back to the first century AD, when Jesus would have been crucified. And so, yeah, they believe that this might be one of the first pieces of Jesus merch where people actually wrote Jesus' name on something. So, Jesus Cup is out there, and people are talking about it. Um, let's see, do. A lightsaber that was Darth Vader's lightsaber that was used to film Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi sold at auction this week for $3.6 million dollars. I feel like that's underselling it, but it's whatever. Um, the Penguin won a bunch at the Emmys in terms of special effects, lighting, hair, makeup, stuff like that. That's cool. The Blues Clues podcast, Alive with Steve from Blues Clues, will debut on September 17th. Um, and it's gonna be like Blues Clues for adults. So if you are wanting to be encouraged by Steve from Blues Clues, you can check that out. September 17th, Alive is the podcast. UNC Chapel Hill, uh, their student and player Seth Trimble, um, used his name, image, likeness rights or earnings uh, as a college basketball player, um, to open up and own a Ben and Jerry's in Chapel Hill. He is now the youngest franchise owner in the world. He said that he was going to take his money, invest in the community, and stick it right there in the Tar Heel area. So Seth Trimble is now the youngest franchise owner in history for Ben and Jerry's. And/or season two won 5 Emmys for just the creative stuff, not the acting portions. Um, the Broadway play Cabaret is going to be shutting down almost a month early, as Billy Porter has withdrawn from it over he's recovering from sepsis. My daughter was actually going to Broadway to see Porter perform in Cabaret on the 25th, and so now it's going to close like 3 days earlier. There are fill-ins that are taking the place, and in that process, investors in the Broadway production of Cabaret are suing and calling for investigations because they believe funds have been mismanaged and they don't agree with it being closed and their money, they're just their investment. So the show is shutting down because Billy Porter has sepsis, and the people are upset because they invested in it and the money is not going where they wanted. So that's a thing. Um, the MTV VMAs were this week. Now, I don't think it's fair that they're the MTV VMAs if we're not actually watching music videos on MTV, but whatever. The vocal artists that performed the voices for Huntrix and K-pop Demon Hunters showed up to the VMAs, and made kind of a splash with it. And one of the big, not jokes, but like moments of the event was the fact that the vocalist for Mira, who sang Mira's lyrics, showed up in a designer dress that looked like a sleeping bag. Because if you've seen K-pop Demon Hunters, you know that Mira wears a sleeping bag to the Met Gala. So good for them. Raiders coach Pete Carroll has set an NFL record as the oldest coach in the NFL ever at 73 years and 357 days. So he is now the oldest coach in NFL history. The Conjuring: The Last Rites kicked all the tail in the box office this past week, bringing in $194 million globally. That is the biggest global horror movie opening ever. Oh, let's see. Actor Michael Caine is planning to return from retirement or at the age of 92 to re to come back for Vin Diesel's um uh Witch Hunter 2. Just side note, 100% not VMA if there isn't music videos on MTV. You're right, dude. I stand by that. I really believe that. Um, but Michael Caine, on that note, because 21 Pilots' new album dropped today, and they premiered their music video ending the story of the lore that's gone on for the last decade of music videos and songs. Um, that video, just the video that dropped for City Walls, they put $1 million into that music video. That's bananas. But if you remember the very forgettable action movie, The Last Witch Hunter with Vin Diesel years ago, there's a sequel to it, and Michael Caine is coming out of retirement at the age of 92 to reprise and be a part of The Last Witch Hunter. If you've ever heard me talk about GalaxyCon Richmond or restaurants or things like that, one of the restaurants that I have sworn by as one of my favorite places to visit is a Mexican Asian fusion restaurant in Richmond, Virginia called Juan Gonzalez. And I'm not going to go through the process of busting through all my desk stuff right here, but um, hold on, okay, point the sun on the podcast for y'all on Facebook. There's a cup right here, a glass on my desk that you can't see. That's a glass from Juan Gonzalez. Um, maybe, ooh, says maybe you, or he says maybe YouTube should take over the video music. That's true. Um, listen, if YouTube would put out a channel of music videos, just music videos that I didn't have to sort through other stuff, I'd be down for that. Um, And Tristan says City Walls is fantastic. But yeah, Juan Gonzalez has been one of my staple places to eat. Every single time I've been to Richmond, Virginia for GalaxyCon Richmond, I've eaten at Juan Gonzalez, sometimes multiple times. I've run into celebrities there. I've had good times there. It's been a kind of a bonding thing for me and my daughter. They've officially permanently closed Juan Gonzalez. Now they're branching out to other areas and rebranding. And one of those areas is in the Raleigh area of North Carolina, so it's technically closer and everything. And they're just going to be called Wong's Tacos. Um, and yeah, I'm just sad. I, my restaurant's gone, but it's cool. Um, but yeah, let's get back to the story. All right. The fan who shoved DeAndre Hopkins and was also shoved by Lamar Jackson has been banned from the NFL and attending NFL games. Chris Paul and LeBron James are now the only active players in the NBA history to ever be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So that's a thing. Do, do, do. Uh, there has been a controversial back and forth this week over the voice actor Greg Kipes, the voice actor for Beast Boy, as statements came out this week that he was fired from Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go after his Parkinson's diagnosis came out, and people were rallying behind him to show support. Then other reports came out that he was not fired and he will return for season 10 with a new role. Um, that he's just not Beast Boy anymore. There's just a lot going back and forth with this, and none of the sources that I are seeing are credible enough to say what's dogmatic on that, but it's drama, so that's happening. Do 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 do. Uh, Carowinds ride the Fury has been named the world's best steel roller coaster for 9 years straight. Um, If you've ever been to Carowinds, it's a solid ride. Um, yeah, it's a solid ride. Uh, let's see. A North Carolina high school student, senior, achieved perfect scores on both the ACT and the SAT. Congratulations to Sophia Lawrence Brenton, a senior at Cary High School. That's a big deal. Getting perfect scores on all the actual major tests. It's pretty baller. Into the backlash of things that happened this week. Good morning, Kelly. Into the backlash of some of the stuff that happened this week in response with the Charlie Kirk shooting. And by the way, if you're jumping into the podcast now, as we're talking about some of the things that are a little saucier this week, be kind and considerate to each other in the comments. Pew, pew. But this week, uh, a lot of collateral damage came from the Charlie Kirk shooting, not because of the actual shooting, but because of people's responses on the internet after the shooting. And lots of people are dealing with those things in different ways. One of the first things I saw collateral damage wise was Red Hood. If you know me and you know anything about my in like fandoms, Red Hood is my favorite character. Um, if you are on Facebook and YouTube, there's a giant Red Hood banner right here, and I know you can't see it, but there's a literal whole shelf of just Red Hood over there. On Instagram, you can see right here's an autographed Red Hood helmet. There's a big thing. I love Red Hood. I've written Bible studies on him. He's my favorite character. So I was saddened for a hot minute when his book Red Hood and the Outlaws ended, and then there was the misfire with the book that came after it, the Hill book, which was I have lots to say about that book, but whatever. There was the first ongoing Red Hood series in years, the second volume attempt at doing an ongoing Red Hood series. Started just this week on Wednesday. And then before the day was even over on Wednesday, the series was canceled. The books were pulled from their shelves. Comic book retailers all received an email saying, all these books are now canceled. We'll refund your money. And you can destroy or return any of the books that are on the shelves, um, and get a refund. Uh, and that all took place because the writer of the Red Hood series, Gretchen Felker Martin, took to Blue Sky to make commentary on Charlie Kirk's shooting and did so in an offensive manner that did not fit the character of someone DC wanted representing them. Now, if I've seen the comments and they're rough, um, but like literally, that's like dozens and dozens of people's jobs and uh years worth of storytelling. This could have been the next big break for this could have been this next summer blockbuster. I mean, it's just like the collateral damage of like verbally being offensive in sensitive times is never wise. Um and like I think it was just crazy to watch it all unfold. Um but that's officially out. DC made this statement at DC Comics. We place the highest value on our creators and community and affirm the right to peaceful and individual expression of personal viewpoints. Posts or public comments that can be viewed as promoting hostility or violence are inconsistent with DC's standards of conduct. And that was the kind of statement they put with it. But that happened. Um, and that's caused backlash just in the comics community with some people supporting it, some people being upset about it. My local comic book shop, Dragon's Lair, put a post out echoing their feelings about it, and it just even that post has generated backlash for the shop and the people involved in it. So, um, yeah, it was rough. Back to real quick to the Ohio State event where it said that it was a revival. This is their annual fall kickoff, and they actually brought advertised it as an invitation to Jesus. Several of the players are involved, and it involves a night of fellowship, baptism, unity, and testimony. So it's a big deal, and it's run by students at Ohio State University. And so that went off really well this week. Another collateral damage to the Charlie Kirk shooting was Matthew Dowd was fired from MSNBC over Charlie Kirk comments. Um, yep. On a positive note, um, and something semi-local in Greenville, South Carolina, an 18-year-old CPR certified individual has been walking the streets of Greenville, South Carolina, as Spider-Man. This young man is in a Spider-Man costume with some practical first aid equipment and a scanner, and he walks the streets of Greenville, South Carolina, patrolling for situations and taking selfies and doing all these things. But he'll literally like hang out in trees or on the sides of buildings and stuff like that, and like just he's checked in with police officers. He's good. The police officers don't say he's a menace. They don't want photos of him. Um, but this week, the Greenville Spider-Man saved two people downtown who were stuck in a waterfall. If you've been to Greenville, South Carolina, one of the most beautiful portions of Greenville, South Carolina is that downtown, in the midst of all the thriving metropolis industrial vibe that is downtown Greenville, there's a river and a waterfall and like a botanical garden dead center that you can just go walk into in Greenville, South Carolina. It's gorgeous. It's one of my favorite spots. It's uh one of the reasons I would go to Greenville, South Carolina. Well, a couple climbed too far down into the waterfall and couldn't get out, and they were trapped. And who was there to rescue them? The Greenville Spider-Man. And brought bystanders caught it on video as Spider-Man uh, reached down, dug his heels into the rocks, and literally lifted people bigger than his own body weight, or at least one dude bigger than his own body weight, out of the waterfall. And he's getting praise and accolades for that. So good job, Spider-Man. Um, yeah, that's pretty cool. Uh, the video game Hollow Knight dropped its sequel, Silk Song, last week, and it has gotten double the negative reviews of Hollow Knight in a week that Hollow Knight got in 8 years. Silk Song racked up 32,000 negative reviews on Steam, and there's only 16,000 negative reviews on all platforms for Hollow Knight over 8 years. And the reason being, almost everything is its difficulty. They're saying it's too hard. I've not played it yet. I just got Hollow Knight to play through that first, but apparently I'm glad I'm waiting because I don't want to get just owned in that capacity. Um, and I know there has to be an office joke in here somewhere, but a pair of Cornell University students killed a 120-pound black bear, brought its carcass back to their dorm, and they skinned and butchered the remains of it in the dorm room. This is the most Dwight Schrute, Andy Bernard sounding thing um, that I've ever seen. And so, yeah, two Cornell kids literally killed and skinned a bear in their dorm room. Um, MGKCT. I always say just Chris. He says that Hollow Knight is hard, but he's old. I get you. Hollow Knight is hard. And I'm not like, cause I bought it, and then my daughter and I went on a road trip, and it was just she's like, "What am I supposed to do with this?" And I'm like, "Explore, figure it out." And I'm like, I can say this, I've only played Hollow Knight for like maybe 45 minutes. and I haven't gotten crazy far in it. Kelly, I see your comment there, and I'm gonna get to that because that's I've got that in the stack too. Um, More collateral damage. A Greenville County teacher from Greenville, South Carolina, has been put on administrative leave again for social media comments um, about the Kirk shooting. Um, Dot says her niece enjoyed the game. Yeah, it's like people enjoy it, so that um, in a surprising turn of I'm going to go with either caution or sensitivity, South Park has pulled a episode that was scheduled to repeat upcoming. They have an episode basically where they like roast slash point the finger slash address Charlie Kirk and people like Charlie Kirk, and that was supposed to previously scheduled air like real soon again, a repeat of it, and they pulled that repeat of it, which is for South Park. I feel like that's pretty big for them to actually just be sensitive about something like that. Um, uh, though The Conjuring: The Last Rites is the last movie in the Conjuring series, it has now been announced that a Conjuring TV show is coming from the showrunner who created Jessica Jones. Um, and Peter Cameron is set to write it. Uh, Peter Cameron and Cameron Squires are set to write it. And it's going to be coming to HBO Max. So a Conjuring show will be hitting Max. And other shows in the semi-spooky world, Fred Armisen is going to be getting an Uncle Fester spin-off show from the TV series Wednesday. That'll be coming and probably be able to film a lot faster um, than getting uh, Jenna Ortega to film a Wednesday show. Dot says she's a wimp and scary movies are a group activity. I'm down with them most of the time. Jerry Seinfeld is under moderate hazing this week or pressure or backlash, but it's Seinfeld, and I don't know what nobody's going to really do much to Jerry Seinfeld um, for making insensitive comments about racism and racist groups. Did a surprise appearance at Duke University, and in that appearance, he made the statement that the KKK is actually a little bit better than the Free Palestine movement, um, and that the he says the Free Palestine movement is just afraid to admit they just don't like Jews. Um, and it's off comment, it's insensitive, and probably not the audience at all ever to make that statement. But so he's facing some backlash for making that statement at Duke. And probably one of the worst choices ever. A woman had actor Raymond Cruz arrested for spraying her with a hose while washing his car. So a woman walked past Raymond Cruz's house while he was washing his car and got him arrested for spraying her with water. Um, and his agents are saying that it's outrageous accusation and it's dumb. But let me just say this. Do you know who Raymond Cruz is? I'll tell you who Raymond Cruz is. Raymond Cruz is Tuco Salamanca from Breaking Bad. This woman had Tuco arrested for spraying water. I'm sorry. If Tuco Salamanca sprayed me with water, I would say, "Thank you for the refreshment, sir. Enjoy your day. I'm going to keep moving." I would not try and go to war with freaking Tuco Salamanca. And you're just going to get him arrested for spraying water. I've seen what this fictional man can do. There's got to be some of the dog in there. And no, sir, I would not. I would not. Uh, I didn't see anything, officer. This water naturally appeared. It rained on me. I don't know how it happened, but no, I would not be getting Tuco arrested for spraying water. That's ridiculous. Um, and a cool bit of story. Uh, the If you've seen Conjuring: The Last Rites, the young actress who played Judy, Mia Tomlinson, was originally cast as young Lorraine, but she fought to get the bigger role of Judy, and she did well with that. Mariah Carey Not Carely, good grief. Mariah Carey finally won a Moon Person this week as she won the Video Vanguard Award for 2025 for MTV. That's not real because MTV doesn't exist. That's a music thing. It was announced this week as 21 Pilots are dropping their new album that the wife of the drummer of 21 Pilots, Josh Dunn, his uh, wife, Debbie Ryan, who's a Disney Channel star, former Disney Channel star, is pregnant, and they're pregnant with their first child. Congratulations to Josh and Debbie. Doo-ba-doo-ba-doo. This week, Pokemon Concierge comes has come out with season two. If you are aware, Pokemon Concierge is a stop motion, beautifully animated and illustrated TV series that's just warm, fuzzy, and cozy. Um, about Pokemon and a young lady who works at a resort where Pokemon live. It's basically White Lotus with Pokemon. And season two has dropped, and there's tie-ins to Pokemon Go where you can get a Psyduck and a Floaty if you want it. It's got Wallace and Gromit vibes, so if that appeals to you, season two is out. There is a merger that is being discussed and is possible, a mega merger with Paramount slash Skydance is trying to do a majority cash bid to acquire all of Warner Brothers and Discovery, including all of DC Studios. So, again, we're still on that joking thing of we're just merging everything until we're back to cable and spending $1 billion on that. So that's totally coming. Henry Cavill has been injured while doing pre-production on the new Highlander movie, and he is details aren't fully out there, but he has been injured while preparing for the role in that capacity. Another response, and while it has not been air quotes proven to be directly related, but another response to all of the chaos this week between the shootings and everything else is that there was mass threats sent into HBCUs across the southern U.S. Historically, black college universities have been just ran rampant with like bomb threats and things of that nature this week, and it was pretty rough as they had to cancel classes um, and do a lot of different things. You want Henry, John Jacobs wants Henry as Magneto. I could see that. I also saw something where since Timothy Oliphant has white hair right now, that people are saying that he should be Magneto too. Um, but uh, dozens of HBCUs were shut down this week over the potential of threats of bombings, of terrorist activities, and things of that nature. And so it was a rough week in terms of things for that. With that, um, dozens of HBCUs enacted emergency measures after facing threats on September 11th from schools from Montgomery to Atlanta, canceled classes and entered lockdowns. There's not been a verified link to the Charlie Kirk situation, but it also is probable. But it included Alabama State, Hampton University, Virginia State, Southern University, A&M, Bethune-Cookman, Cork or Clark Atlanta, Spelman, Morehouse, Morris Brown, Morehouse School of Medicine, and all had to go into emergency status. Um, this week, Mark Davis, hey Venitude, David Chapman has been denied parole for the 14th time in his life. This is the 45 years after David Chapman killed John Lennon. He's denied parole for that. Um, let's go back to some other news stories. Make sure with this. Um, Animal Control. Jordan just says, "Yo, I just joined. Good morning. Are you going to be at PowerCon in Florence tomorrow? I might come by if my schedule allows it. I've got a MRI in the morning, and then I've got a DJ a wedding tomorrow night. So it's kind of talk come and go on there if I'm going to be there. I would like to. I'm not set up, but I would like to come by and attend. Um, Animal control officers uh, in East Hartford, Connecticut, are investigating a bizarre case of vandalism where people are painting squirrels different colors, like bright reds and blues and stuff like that. So they're investigating that. Um, Warner Brothers is now the first movie studio in history to release 7 films in a row with over $40 million domestically in their opening weekend. I reported this previously when they set the record at 6 films. Um, Now, Conjuring the Last Rites adds one more to it. It's being reported that Reebok is going to lose almost $15 million on the Angel Reese sneakers due to a lack of sales with that. 21 Pilots again dropped their new album today. But in the process this week of all their other announcements and preparations, they are suing Temu um, for releasing blatant copies of their merchandise and some that are even linked to hateful and violent content. And so they are suing Temu in that process. Um, Bill Belichick and his are they married? Are they engaged? I forget. Either way, the Jordan Hudson and Bill Belichick tried to file trademarks this week for Bill Belichick merchandise and advertisement stuff. Um, but everything they tried to file was already owned by the Patriots. And in an idea that directly seems like it comes from somebody from a younger generation, they tried to label things as Bill's version, like Taylor's version. But the things that they tried to apply for trademarks on were do your job, Bill's version, ignore the noise, Bill's version, the Bellustrator, Bill's version, and no days off, Bill's version. Um, and all of those were rejected as trademarks because the Patriots own those references. Um, and another sad note, Brent Simpson is a North Carolina officer who died by suicide, and in 2024, and they've studied his brain in the process, and they think that he might be the first police officer to be officially diagnosed with CTE. Um, it's a brain condition that usually comes from trauma and things of that nature. And one of the big, and from that usually happens in athletes. One of the biggest known or publicized cases of it is Chris Benoit from the WWE. But they're thinking that this might be that, and they're going to try and investigate that a little bit further and how it ties to police work as well. Got that one already. That one. All right, let's see if there's any other news stories. I think I might be close to the end on those. Yes. Carolina Panthers field coach, or sorry, Carolina Panthers communications coordinator, Charlie Rock, has been fired for making insensitive comments regarding Charlie Kirk. Kelly, you were mentioning this earlier, but he uh he made some commentary that was not the roughest I've seen, but also if you're literally the communications coordinator for the major football team, I think you should understand the power and the weight um, uh, of using your words wisely. My guy. Um, uh, the comic book Batman Hush 2 is facing major delays as issue 162 has been pushed to November and issue 163 has been pushed all the way to January. Um, And this is just for the first half of Hush 2. It has not gone well for them. It has not been a smooth sailing for releasing that book. The world's biggest bounce house is coming to Raleigh, North Carolina. The Big Bounce America um, will be stopping in Raleigh September 19th through the 21st. So if you've ever wanted to be on the world's biggest bounce house, you can head over to Raleigh and enjoy that situation. Yep, the parliament in Nepal was set on fire after the protests from social media I mentioned earlier. Um, in terms of the Charlie Kirk shooting, they've also authorities have recovered the weapon used to kill Charlie Kirk and footwear impressions, a palm print, and an arm print is the most information they've received at this point. Uh, NASA has discovered um, what they believe to be definitive proof of life on Mars. Ancient microbial life. The new administrator for the space agency, Sean Duffy, said a sample collected by the Perseverance rover has declared the clearest sign of life ever found on the red planet. Um, with that, we covered the Jesus Cup, UFO, Nepal. Make sure got all those things. And I think we're down to the last one, maybe. That might be our news. Yep, I think y'all that's our news for the week. It's been a lot, and I just want to say again, be encouraging and be kind to each other because y'all it's rough out there and you're hurting people and disappointing and discouraging people when you show the worst sides of your heart in public fashion. I'm not saying hide anything, but be wise and discerning. Um, there's a scripture, Colossians 4, 5, and 6, that says, um, always be wise when you're dealing with outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your words always be full of grace and seasoned with salt, that you may know how to answer each one. Y'all, we have not been full of grace, and I don't know that we've been seasoned with salt. I just know we've been salty. Um, uh, says 2025 has been a lot. It's this week has been a lot. It has been, man. It's a, it's a rough year for existence. I'm glad to be alive. I'm glad we have the opportunities we have, but man, we could do a little bit kinder and a little bit better. We're gonna head on into our roll for initiative Bible reading for the week. We're gonna roll a rock, paper, scissors die. Um, fist is Old Testament. Scissors is New Testament, and paper is the whole Bible because it covers everything. All right, so we're gonna roll and see where we're reading out of. Old Testament. Here we go, Old Testament. I don't want to have an attitude that seems like I'm complaining about reading the Old Testament because shit, that's not a thing. I was hoping for some warm fuzzy somethings. So, all right, because there are 39 books in the Old Testament, we're going to roll two d20s and subtract one. That'll allow us to start with the first book, if we were to roll it. So, rolling two d20s. We got a what are you? You're a five, and you are a seven. To 12, we are reading the 11th book of Jordan says be seasoned with salt, don't be salty. Should be a sticker. Dude, there I've seen stickers of that variety, like that say stuff like be salt and light, not salty and lit, and different things like that. I feel you. It's real. All right, so we're gonna find the 11th book of the Bible, see what that is. And then we're gonna roll to see what chapter we're reading out of it. Oh. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11. First Kings. I'm going to 397. Oh, there's a lot of chapters in First Kings. Okay. I'm getting there, y'all. Sorry. I don't off the top of my head know how many chapters are in First Kings. All right, there are 22. So we are going to roll let's do a D20 and a just for the sake of ease, a D4. We're going to subtract one again. Um and see what we land on. That is a 7 and a 3. That is 10. So we're going to read First Kings chapter 9 is where we have landed with the dice. I'm going to go ahead and put these up. And then so we're going to be in First Kings chapter 9. But no, I hope that y'all, if you're going to Florence Comic Con tomorrow or Power Comic Con, that y'all have a great day with that. I would like to. I would like to have been set up, but it's just uh one of those things that pastorally and DJ wise, when people ask you to do a wedding in advance, you kind of gotta set that stuff aside no matter what. Because I've missed one wedding I really wanted to be a part of back in the day because I had a GalaxyCon book for the Geek Church, and I'm like, I can't because but I try and show up to as many weddings as possible when I'm supposed to. All right, so we're gonna be in First Kings chapter 9. I'm gonna move this guy out of the way. Let's sit this down here. Rawr. All right, First Kings chapter 9. The Lord appears to Solomon. Okay. First Kings chapter 9. Pull out a highlighter and a pencil. Grab my handy dandy notebook. Um, Go ahead and mark in my little Bible tracker chart, which is a neat part of this notebook that I've got. It's got little blocks to actually mark which chapters of scripture you read. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and mark First Kings chapter 9 on the assumption I'm going to finish this chapter. Oh man, oh man. Get to where that is. Minutes. First Kings 9. Today is 9/12. All right, let's see what's going down. Hey, Stephen. Good morning, dude. Um, so First Kings chapter 9. The Lord appears to Solomon. When Solomon had finished building the temple of the Lord and the royal palace and had achieved all he desired to do, the Lord appeared to him a second time, as he had appeared to him at Gibeon. The Lord said to him, I have heard the prayer and plea you have made before me. I have consecrated this temple which you have built by putting my name there forever. My eyes and heart will always be there. As for you, if you walk before me faithfully with integrity of heart and uprightness, as David your father did, and do all I command you and observe my decrees and laws, I will establish your royal throne over Israel, as I promised David your father when I said, you shall never fail to have a successor on Israel. And by the way, I'm not here to throw shade or condemnation on David's name, but when God tells Solomon, if you walk before me faithfully with integrity of heart and uprightness as David your father did, uh, I feel like that's a pretty um curved depiction. Because listen, walking as faithfully as David did can be pretty easy depending on the day. Uh, so just saying, there's some wiggle room in there. Verse 6 says this, but if your descendants turn away from me and do not observe the commands and decrees I have given you, and go off to serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off from Israel the land I have given them, and will reject this um, temple I have consecrated for my name. Israel will then become a byword and an object of ridicule among all my people. This temple will become a heap of rubble. All who pass by will be appalled and will scoff and say, why has the Lord done such a thing to this land and the people? People answer, because they have forsaken the Lord their God, who brought their ancestors out of Egypt, and have embraced the other gods, worshiping and serving them. This is why the Lord has brought all this disaster on them. Uh, verse 10 says Solomon's other activities. It says, at the end of 20 years, during which Solomon built these two buildings, the temple of the Lord and the royal palace, King Solomon gave 20 towns in Galilee to Hiram, the king of Tyre, because Hiram had supplied him with all the cedar and juniper and gold that he wanted. But when Hiram went from Tyre to see the towns that Solomon had given him, he was not pleased with them. What kind of towns are these you have given me, my brother? He asked, and he called them the land of Cabul, a name given to this day. Now Hiram had sent to the king 120 talents of gold. Um, Here is the account of the forced labor King Solomon conscripted to build the Lord's temple, his own palace, the terraces, the walls of Jerusalem, Hazor, Medgo, Gezer. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, had attacked and captured Gezer and set it on fire. He killed its Canaanite inhabitants and then gave it as a wedding gift to his daughter, Solomon's wife, and Solomon rebuilt Gezer. He built up Lower Hebron, Bala, Tadmon, in the desert with his land, as well as his store cities and the towns for his chariots and for his horses, whatever he desired to be built in Jerusalem and Lebanon and throughout the territory he ruled. There were still people left from the Amorites, Hittites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites. These people were not Israelites. Solomon conscripted the descendants of all these people remaining in the land, whether Israelites could not, whom the Israelites could not exterminate to serve as slave labor, as it is to this day. But Solomon did not make these slaves of any of the Israelites. They were his fighting men, his government officials, his captains, the commanders of chariots and charioteers. There were also chief officials in charge of Solomon's projects. 550 officials were supervising who did the work. Sounds like a government job. Verse 24 says, after Pharaoh's daughter had come up from the city of David to the palace Solomon had built for her, he constructed the terraces. 3 times a year, Solomon sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings on the altar he built for the Lord, burning incense before the Lord among them, so fulfilled the temple obligations. King Solomon also built ships at Ezion Geber, which is near Elah and Edom, on the shores, and Hiram sent his men, sailors who knew the sea, to serve with the fleet with Solomon's men. They sailed to offer and brought back 420 talents of gold, which they delivered to King Solomon. Just history account of Solomon kind of getting started with these things. And here's the thing with Solomon getting his start, it's hard because you know Solomon's end. You know that Solomon is going to make horrible life choices. He's going to marry 700 different women from different countries and different religions. He's going to get far from God. He's going to struggle with depression. He's going to do all these things. And just looking at the fact that God gave him a heads up at the beginning, he's like, listen, Stick the course and don't stray far from this because you're not going to have the blessings of this. And he gave instructions the same way that he did for David. And it's just, what do you do with what you're given? But it's a whole weird situation. Well, thank you for taking time to hang out and with us as we talk about news and read scripture and do these things. Before I go, I want to take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters and also let you guys know just some stuff. I going in for an MRI tomorrow morning on my lower back, and I just had a CT scan done yesterday on my neck. And I've just got some spinal issues we're gonna have to work on. Probably surgeries, probably some other things, probably some other stuff we're looking into. My friend Zach said, "Hey, your symptoms sound like a guy in my church who's got the West Nile virus. So also might be the West Nile virus. Who knows? We're working on it. We're working on it. But I'm trying not to die. Is the general thing. I at least want to see how One Piece ends. um, Before I go, I want to thank our Patreon supporters: Jackie Kraft, Kelly Townsend, Alan Wallace, Fab Quack, Rivka and Tristan Birch, Dorothy Martin Winston, Michelle Stewart, Lynn Turner, David Brooks, Jeff Weimer, Colin Sproles, Jamie Montgomery, the Coleman family, Jonathan Herman, uh, Ron Petit, Gear Saber Cosplay, um, Cosplay, Scott Ward, Alicia Glenn, Jay Shee, Jason Crutchfield, Mike Perna, Todd Turner, John Jacobs, Zach Harris, Caleb Grimm, Jeanette Skaggs, Jason Bullock, Christina Ray, Sarah Lewis, Patrick Gale, Rebecca Godlove, and Adam Davis. Thank you all for being the incredible encouragements and support that you are. Let you know some upcoming stuff. Uh, just started the process this week of transcribing another 101 devotionals for a bite size. It'll be um, Faith and Fandom Bite Size Second Breakfast. Will be the title of it, and that'll probably be out or it'll be either by Christmas or the beginning of the year. Um, and Also am 10 chapters deep into writing a fantasy D&D style, just straight up fictional novel. That's coming, and yeah, that's kind of the at work things at the moment. Um, I will be at Greensboro Comic Con next weekend. Um, I will on the 20th. I will be at Boardwalk Comic Con, which is in Myrtle Beach, on October 3rd and 4th, or 4th and 5th, whatever that weekend is. I will be in Boone on October 11th. I will be doing Geek Church at Fayetteville Fan Fest on October 19th. And uh, there's an event I've got on November 22nd. Um, that's kind of a church Comic Con. Um, and I got to remember the name of it, but I'll make sure I add that to my list. But I want to say thank y'all for taking time to listen, for being a part, for supporting and encouraging. And I hope to see all of y'all at a con real soon. Thank you for taking time to listen, and I hope you have a great day.